The fabric of Elara's borrowed dress felt like a judgment, stiff and unforgiving against her skin. She stood in a corner of the brightly lit gallery, a ghost at a feast, her camera a heavy anchor around her neck. Laughter echoed off the stark white walls, mingling with the clinking of champagne flutes and the self-important murmur of the city's art elite. Everyone here belonged. She was just the hired help, paid a pittance to capture smiles she couldn't feel and successes that felt a universe away from her own cramped apartment and a portfolio full of rejections. Her job was to make this night look like a dream, even as it felt like her personal nightmare. Her gaze drifted to the centerpiece of the exhibition, a collection of stark, oversaturated cityscapes by Marcus Thorne. He was holding court near his most acclaimed piece, a man whose confidence was as loud as his photography. Elara had admired his work once, before she had met him, before he had looked at her portfolio with a dismissive smirk and advised her to find a more suitable hobby. Now, seeing him soak in the adulation felt like a physical blow. It was a sharp, painful reminder of every door that had been slammed in her face, every email left unanswered. Loneliness was a cold, familiar cloak, but tonight, it felt suffocating. She raised her camera, framing a shot of a laughing couple, their heads tilted together in a perfect moment of shared joy. The click of the shutter felt hollow. This was her life, cataloging the happiness of others. As she lowered the camera, she saw Marcus approaching, a proprietary glint in his eye. He was not walking toward her, but past her, his shoulder brushing hers without a flicker of acknowledgement. He stopped beside a critic, gesturing grandly at his own work. "The key is to be relentless," he boomed, his voice carrying easily. "To have a vision and not let anything, or anyone, distract you. The world has enough mediocrity." His eyes flicked to her for a fraction of a second, a cold, deliberate dismissal. The air left Elara's lungs. It was a direct hit, intended and precise. Humiliation burned hot in her cheeks. She felt a desperate need to escape, to be anywhere but under these unforgiving lights. Murmuring a flimsy excuse to the event coordinator, she fled the gallery, not stopping until the chilly night air hit her face. She leaned against the cold brick of the building, the sounds of the party now a muffled taunt. Tears she refused to shed pricked at her eyes. It was one thing to fail in private, it was another to have her inadequacy served up as a public spectacle. Pulling the memory card from her camera to switch it out, her fingers fumbled, clumsy with unshed frustration. The tiny black square slipped, bounced once on the pavement with a faint, plastic tick, and skittered into the darkness beneath a wrought iron park bench. "No, no, no," she whispered, a fresh wave of despair washing over her. The entire night's work was on that card. Her payment depended on it. Dropping to her knees on the cold sidewalk, heedless of her dress, she began to pat frantically in the dark space under the bench. The ground was gritty and damp. Her hand brushed against a discarded wrapper and something sticky. Panic began to coil in her stomach. It was just one more failure in a long, unbroken chain. "Are you all right, ma'am?" The voice was calm, deep, and carried a note of quiet authority that made Elara freeze. It was a voice accustomed to being listened to. She looked up, squinting against the streetlights. A woman stood there, her form silhouetted. She was wearing a police officer's uniform, the crisp lines a stark contrast to Elara's own disheveled state. Beside her, holding her hand, was a small girl with two pigtails that bounced with a life of their own. I dropped something," Elara stammered, feeling impossibly foolish. "My camera's memory card. It has all my work on it." The little girl peered under the bench, her expression serious. "It's very dark under there," she announced with the profound wisdom of a 6-year-old. She looked at Elara, then up at the officer. "Mommy, to see like a puppy, she needs to get on all fours." A soft, low chuckle met the child's declaration. The officer's silhouette shifted as she knelt, bringing her face into the light. She had kind eyes, warm and surprisingly gentle, and a smile that crinkled at the corners. My daughter has a point, she said, her voice laced with amusement. Sometimes you have to. Lily, hold my hat. She handed her peaked cap to the girl, who accepted it with solemn importance. The officer then looked at Elara, her expression now one of shared conspiracy. Well? Heeding the advice of a tiny expert, you might need to get on all fours. I'll use my phone's flashlight to help. The command, which could have been humiliating, was delivered with such gentle, disarming humor that Elara felt the tension in her shoulders ease for the first time all night. It wasn't an order, it was an invitation to a slightly ridiculous solution. A small, watery smile touched Elara's lips. She nodded, and without another thought for her dress or her dignity, she got onto her hands and knees. A bright beam of light immediately cut through the gloom under the bench, illuminating the gritty concrete. And there it was, nestled against one of the bench's iron legs, the small, black square of plastic. I see it. Elara cried, relief washing over her in a dizzying wave. She reached for it, her fingers closing around it like a precious jewel. She scrambled back to her feet, clutching the card tightly in her palm. Thank you, she breathed, looking at the officer, really looking at her for the first time. You have no idea. You saved me. Just doing my civic duty, the officer replied, her smile widening. She took her hat back from her daughter and settled it on her head. I'm Sergeant Maya Davis. This is my chief advisor, Lily. I'm Elara, she said, managing a real smile now. And Lily, you're a genius, Lily beamed, puffing out her chest. You look like you've had a rough night, Maya observed, her perceptive gaze taking in Elara's strained expression and the stiff formality of her dress. My shift just ended. We were heading for hot chocolate. There's a place just around the corner that's still open. They have marshmallows. You should join us. My treat. The offer was so unexpected, so genuinely kind, that Elara was momentarily speechless. A police sergeant she had just met was inviting her for hot chocolate with her daughter. It was a lifeline thrown into the cold, lonely waters of her evening. The thought of returning to her empty apartment was suddenly unbearable. I'd like that very much, she said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Sergeant Davis. Maya, she corrected gently. And you're welcome, Elara. As they walked, Lily slipped her free hand into Elara's, her small fingers a warm, trusting weight. For the first time all night, Elara felt like she might actually belong somewhere. The cafe was a warm haven of dark wood and the rich scent of coffee and cinnamon. They settled into a cozy booth in the corner, Lily squirming with excitement between them. The hot chocolates arrived in tall mugs, piled high with whipped cream and miniature marshmallows. Lily immediately began a surgical excavation of her marshmallows, lining them up on her napkin. So, Maya began, her voice soft as she cradled her mug. A photographer? She nodded toward the camera that now sat on the seat beside Elara. Elara nodded, a familiar knot of insecurity tightening in her chest. Trying to be. I was covering an event at the gallery tonight. She hesitated, then decided on honesty. The kindness in Maya's eyes seemed to demand it. The artist was not very encouraging. It was a hard night. Maya's expression softened with understanding. People who have found success sometimes forget what it was like to struggle. Or worse, they remember, and they want to be the only ones on top of the mountain. She took a slow sip of her drink. You shouldn't let one person define your worth. What do you like to photograph when you're not working events? The question caught Elara off guard. No one had asked her that in years. Not with genuine interest. Portraits, she said, the word feeling foreign on her tongue. I like capturing the quiet moments. The things people think no one else sees. The way someone's eyes light up when they talk about something they love, or the weariness in their hands after a long day. The truth, I guess. That sounds beautiful, Maya said simply, and the sincerity in her voice was a balm on Elara's bruised confidence. "It sounds important." "Mommy's a hero," Lily announced suddenly, her mouth ringed with chocolate. "She helps people who are lost." Maya smiled at her daughter, a deep, loving expression that transformed her entire face. "Sometimes," she said, her gaze flicking back to Elara. "And sometimes, I just help find lost things under benches." They talked for over an hour, the conversation flowing with an ease that felt miraculous. Elara learned that Maya was a widow, that her wife Sarah had been a doctor who had passed away 3 years ago. She learned that Lily was the center of her universe, the bright, unwavering star in her sky. In turn, Elara spoke of her dream to have her own show one day, a series of portraits of everyday people from her neighborhood, a project she had titled Unseen. She confessed her fears that she wasn't good enough, that Marcus Thorne had been right about her. "He wasn't," Maya said with a quiet certainty that left no room for argument. "From what you've described, you don't just take pictures. You see people. That's a gift." "Don't let anyone make you doubt it." Her words were a direct counter to the poison Marcus had poured into her ears. They were an affirmation, a validation that Elara desperately needed to hear. "You seem like a good person, Elara. A kind one. The world needs more of that." When they finally parted ways outside the cafe, the city felt different. The streetlights seemed warmer, the night air less biting. Maya had insisted on giving her a ride home, and as Elara stepped out of the patrol car, she turned back. "Thank you, Maya. For everything." "Get some rest," Maya said, her smile visible in the dim light of the car's interior. "And Elara? Don't stop taking those pictures." Over the next few weeks, that one night became a tentative bridge to something more. Maya texted her the next day, a simple message asking if she had recovered from her ordeal under the bench. The light, easy banter continued, evolving into longer conversations. A week later, they met for coffee, this time without uniforms or formal events as a backdrop. It felt like a first date, though neither of them called it that. Elara found herself captivated by the woman behind the uniform. Maya was thoughtful, surprisingly funny, and she listened with an intensity that made Elara feel like the only person in the room. The weeks turned into a month, and the city transitioned from the crispness of late autumn to the stark chill of early winter. Their meetings became a regular fixture in Elara's life. They took Lily to the park, where Elara, camera in hand, captured the uninhibited joy on the little girl's face as Maya pushed her on the swings. They spent a rainy Saturday at the Science Museum, their hands brushing as they leaned over an exhibit. Each touch, however fleeting, sent a spark through Elara. One evening, they were sitting in Maya's comfortable, lived-in living room after Lily had gone to bed. A fire crackled in the hearth, casting a warm glow over the room. Elara was telling Maya about another rejection, this one from a small local gallery. The sting was still fresh. "Maybe I should just give up," Elara murmured, tracing the pattern on her tea mug. "Find a more stable job." Maya reached across the coffee table and placed her hand over Elara's. Her touch was warm and firm. "No," she said, her voice low and serious. "You can't. Your work matters. I've seen the photos you took of Lily in the park. You captured her spirit, her very essence, in a way I've never seen before. You have a rare talent, Elara. The world just hasn't caught up yet." She squeezed Elara's hand. "I believe in you." Looking into Maya's earnest, steady gaze, Elara felt a profound shift inside her. For the first time, hope felt not like a distant, flickering candle, but like a warm, growing flame in her chest. She realized, with a sudden, heart-stopping clarity, that her feelings for Maya ran deeper than friendship. It was more than gratitude, more than admiration. It was a quiet, powerful current pulling her toward this incredible woman. Leaning forward, Elara closed the small distance between them and pressed her lips to Maya's. The kiss was soft, hesitant at first, a question. Maya's response was immediate. She deepened the kiss, her hand moving from Elara's to cup her cheek, her touch gentle and sure. It was a kiss that tasted of tea and wood smoke and the promise of a new beginning. When they finally broke apart, they simply looked at each other, the unspoken feelings now laid bare in the warm, flickering light of the fire. Their relationship blossomed in the quiet intimacy of winter. They kept it to themselves at first, a precious secret they weren't yet ready to share with the world. There was a protective barrier around Maya's life, a necessity of her job and her status as a single mother. She was a private person, and the police department wasn't always the most progressive environment. An older, more traditional sergeant on her squad, a man named Miller, was known for his gossipy nature and conservative views. Maya didn't want their budding relationship to become fodder for the station's rumor mill. So they stole moments. Late-night talks after Lily was asleep, quiet weekends spent indoors, cooking together and watching old movies. Elara met Maya's mother, a woman named Eleanor, whose initially skeptical gaze softened when she saw the easy, genuine affection between her daughter and Elara, and how much Lily adored having Elara around. Eleanor had been worried about Maya opening her heart again after losing Sarah, but seeing the light back in her daughter's eyes was a powerful validation. The secrecy, however, began to take its toll. They had to be careful in public, refraining from even the simplest gestures of affection, like holding hands. One afternoon, while they were at a crowded farmer's market with Lily, Sergeant Miller happened to be there with his family. Maya's posture immediately stiffened, her hand, which had been about to brush Elara's, dropping to her side. She offered a polite, professional nod to her colleague, introducing Elara as a friend. The word, though technically true, felt like a sharp, cold stone in Elara's chest. She understood the necessity, but it still hurt. That night, after Lily was in bed, the tension lingered between them. Elara was quiet, staring into the fireplace. "Does it bother you?" Maya finally asked, her voice gentle. "That I called you my friend?" "I understand why you did it," Elara said, not looking at her. "I do. But yes, Maya. It bothers me. It felt like we were hiding. It made what we have feel less real." Maya came to sit beside her on the rug, taking her hand. "What we have is the most real thing in my life right now," she said earnestly. "You and Lily, you are my life. I'm just scared. Miller is from a different generation. People talk. I don't want my job to become complicated, and I don't want anyone to treat you or Lily differently because of it." "I'm not ashamed of us," Elara whispered, finally meeting her eyes. "Are you?" "Never," Maya said, her grip on Elara's hand tightening. "God, no. I'm proud of us. I love what we're building," she sighed, a weary sound. "I just don't know how to navigate this." The breaking point came a few weeks later. Inspired by Maya's unwavering belief in her, Elara had taken a monumental leap of faith. She had quit her soul-crushing event photography gigs and poured all her energy and meager savings into her unseen project. She spent her days photographing the quiet, overlooked residents of her neighborhood, creating a stunning collection of portraits that were honest and deeply empathetic. She submitted the portfolio to a small but respected independent gallery, the one that had rejected her before. This time, armed with a newfound confidence that came directly from Maya's love and support, she got a different response. The gallery owner was captivated. She offered Elara a solo exhibition. Her first. Elara was ecstatic, bursting to share the news with Maya. She called her, and Maya's thrilled voice on the other end was everything she had hoped for. "We have to celebrate," Maya insisted. "Tonight. I'll book a table at that Italian place you love." But the celebration was cut short. As they were leaving the restaurant, hand in hand for a brief, stolen moment on the quiet side street, a patrol car slowed as it passed them. Sergeant Miller was in the passenger seat. His eyes met Maya's, then flickered down to their joined hands before the car continued on its way. He didn't smile or wave. His expression was unreadable, but Maya's face went pale. The moment was shattered. Back at Maya's house, the silence was heavy. "He saw us," Maya said, her back to Elara as she stared out the window. "Let him," Elara said, her voice stronger than she felt. "Maya, I am so tired of hiding. I just got the biggest break of my life, a dream I had almost given up on, and it's because of you. Because you saw me. You believed in me. I want to stand next to you at my gallery opening and introduce you not as my friend, but as the woman I love. I don't want to hide that. I can't." Maya turned from the window, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The conflict within her was plain to see, the protective officer versus the woman who was deeply in love. She walked over to Elara, her expression resolute. She took both of Elara's hands in hers. "You're right," she said, her voice clear and firm. "You are absolutely right. I am done being afraid. I choose us." The declaration was simple but monumental. It was a promise. "I love you, Elara. And I am not going to let the fear of what some dinosaur like Miller might think or say diminish what we have. He can talk. Let him. Our life is more important than his opinion." The next day, Maya walked into her precinct and didn't hide. When Miller made a sidelong comment about her busy social life, Maya met his gaze directly. "I'm very happy, Sergeant," she said, her tone leaving no room for gossip. "I've met someone wonderful. Her name is Elara." To her surprise, her captain, a woman she had always respected, overheard the exchange and simply smiled. "That's good to hear, Davis," she said. Happiness is good for the job. The dreaded confrontation turned out to be a non-event. The fear had been a ghost, more powerful in her mind than in reality. They had dismantled the obstacle simply by refusing to grant it any more power. The night of Elara's gallery opening was a blur of surreal joy. The space was filled not with the cold, judgmental elite from her past, but with the warm, smiling faces of the people from her photographs, her friends, and her new family. Maya was there, radiant in a dark blue dress, holding Lily's hand. Eleanor, Maya's mother, stood beside them, her arm linked through Maya's, her eyes filled with pride as she looked at Elara's work. Elara's portraits lined the walls, each one a testament to her unique vision. She had finally found her voice. People were moved by the images, by the raw humanity she had captured. The gallery owner told her she had never seen such a successful opening night. But Elara's focus was on one person. Maya stood before a large portrait of herself, taken one lazy Sunday morning. In the photo, she was out of uniform, wearing a soft sweater, a gentle smile on her face as she watched Lily, who was just out of frame. Elara had captured the loving mother, the gentle soul, the woman she loved, completely separate from the public-facing sergeant. As the crowd began to thin, Maya led Elara to the center of the room. It was the same gallery building where she had been humiliated by Marcus Thorne months before, but tonight, it was her space. It was a symbol of her triumph. Lily ran over and hugged both their legs, beaming up at them. "I have something to ask you," Maya said, her voice a little shaky. She knelt down so she was on eye level with Elara. "A few months ago, on the worst night of your life, my daughter told you to get on all fours. It was the beginning of the best thing that has ever happened to me." She smiled, her eyes glistening. "So it seems only fitting." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. Elara's breath hitched. "Elara," Maya continued, her voice thick with emotion. "You came into our lives and you filled a space we didn't even know was empty. You see the world with such beauty and kindness. You see me. You make me want to be a better person, a better mother. I love you more than I have words for." She opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant silver ring. "I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up to you every morning and face every challenge with you by my side. Will you and your camera marry me and my chief advisor?" Tears streamed freely down Elara's face as she laughed, a sound of pure, unadulterated joy. Lily clapped her hands in delight. Yes, Elara whispered, her voice choked with happiness. Yes, of course, yes. Maya slid the ring onto her finger as their small audience of allies, Eleanor and the gallery owner, applauded softly. Elara pulled Maya to her feet and into a deep, heartfelt kiss, a public declaration of their love and commitment in the very space that had once been the source of her deepest pain. A year later, the world was a different place. The chilly memory of that night outside the gallery was now just the prologue to their story. They were married in the spring, a small ceremony in Eleanor's beautiful garden, with Lily as the flower girl, proudly scattering petals down the aisle. Elara's career had taken off. The success of her first show led to another, then a commission for a book. She was no longer the invisible photographer cataloging other people's lives. She was an artist, respected and fulfilled, telling stories that mattered. She had found her purpose, not just in her work, but in the family she had built with Maya and Lily. The worst moment of her life had, improbably, led her directly to the very best parts of it. It was a lesson in the beautiful, unpredictable chaos of the universe, that sometimes, you have to fall to your knees in the dark before you can find the person who will help you stand up in the light. On a bright Saturday morning, the scent of pancakes and sandalwood filled their sun-drenched kitchen. Elara stood at the stove, flipping a pancake, while Maya sat at the table, reading the paper, her feet hooked around Elara's ankles in a familiar, comforting gesture. Lily was at the counter, meticulously arranging strawberries on a plate, her tongue stuck out in concentration. Laughter filled the small, warm space. This was it. This was the unseen moment Elara had always wanted to capture, not with her camera, but with her heart. It was a quiet, perfect portrait of belonging, of a family forged in an unexpected encounter on a cold city sidewalk. It was home.